Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry is the talk of the college football world for all the wrong reasons, and it might affect LSU's football coaching search. We'll explain. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download FanDuel today. We're also part of the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So if you're watching us there, thank you sincerely for being here as well on Locked on LSU. On Wednesday, Governor Jeff Landry in Louisiana was holding a press conference, something unrelated completely to sports. And he was asked about the future of the LSU football program. Of course, Brian Kelly being fired, the buyout, and what the Tigers might do moving forward. And the governor, who is a very opinionated man, gave a 2-minute and 11-second answer, of which I will play in its entirety in just a moment. And I want to play it in its entirety in total fairness to Governor Landry, so you can hear his comments in their totality and you can make your decision. And then I'll tell you my opinion on them. But what you're going to hear from the governor has become a lightning rod across college football, because the governor, in no uncertain terms, tells you what I have been telling you here, if you're an everydayer, for several days now. Every time we've talked about the LSU football coaching search, I've told you, and I've been very clear in telling you that I can't make a prediction on who LSU is going to hire until I know who is going to make this hire. And it would stand to reason that you have a sitting athletic director in Scott Woodward that he would make the hire. But what I know to be true is that the governor has been trying to find an avenue to move Scott Woodward out of that position. And I've tap danced around that as delicately as I possibly can. Well, the governor on Wednesday took a sledgehammer to that conversation. There is no more ambiguity. Jeff Landry wants Scott Woodward fired, and he's probably going to get his way. And that has undeniably impacted the LSU coaching search. Now, is it irreparable? We're going to find out. And I'm going to dive into all this and explain it. Before I go any further, I want to say this again, because every time we say that, we talk about this, I want to say this. So there's no uncertainty. I've met Jeff Landry. He has been an extremely nice man. I have really sincerely enjoyed my time, limited opportunities, but the times I've had to talk to him. I think he's a genuine person, and I had a very pleasant interactions with him. I have nothing bad to say about him. I also am an apolitical person. I know there are some of you that have staunchly held beliefs, whether you're Republican, Democrat, you're blue, you're red, you're left or right. I genuinely don't care. That's hard for some people to believe when you hold very firm beliefs and you are so ardently, staunchly rooted in your opinions, which I respect, have those. But it's hard, I know, for some people who live every day and they have those inputs all day long with political leanings to understand that someone could be just sort of apathetic. Like, I don't care what your political leanings are. And some of you still won't believe that. But I genuinely don't care if you're left or right. I just treat people nicely. Treat people nicely. It's the golden rule. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's generally what I believe. And I hate that I have to preface this conversation, but I never talk politics until politics finds its way into sports. I talk sports. I don't do politics. I did politics 25 years ago when I started my career. I hated it so much because of this type of stuff that I quit doing news and did sports. So I never talk about politics or social issues or any of those things until they find their way into sports. And the governor's comments undeniably are impacting LSU's search and ability to find a new head coach, because his comments have created great uncertainty around who LSU's athletic director is going to be. And if a coach is going to take this job, they want to know who their boss is going to be. And so this has created a lot of unrest. So anyway, without saying any more, I'm going to play this for you in its entirety. You make up your mind. I'll come back and tell you what I think. Because, by the way, there's some things that Jeff Landry says in this 2-minute, 11-second clip that I wholeheartedly agree with. He makes some excellent points. But he also, I think, in some spots overstepped. Again, I'll get to that in a second. Here's the governor.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it, because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill. So, yeah, I absolutely. Who's that? Scott Woodward. No, I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. Because, wait, I want to hold on. One real quick thing on that. Because here's what y'all reporters need to do. Y'all need to start looking at who represents all these people, like these agents. You know what's interesting? If I'm not mistaken, Woodward's agent, Kelly's agent, the Texas A&M, they're all the same agent. Like, you realize if I would be, I don't know how many sports writers we got here today? Just you. We should have a bunch. Okay? Like, this is ridiculous. Lawyers would be disbarred for the way these agents act and the way they're able to represent. In fact, there's no doubt, they may even represent some of the players now. Like, it's really time for the NCAA to put on some guardrails in college sports. Because, and it's fine. We don't need the guardrails. If big billionaires want to spend all that kind of money, no problem. But if I got to go find $53 million from Kemp, it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. I'm just telling you. I know. And I think that that's important as well. Y'all should start looking into that. Okay.
So he said a lot there, and I want to unpack it. Get your thoughts together. Let me step aside, and I want to come back, because I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes from what he said, and some of which I agree with, but some of which is horrendously off base and needs to be checked. And we'll do that when we come back. Locked on LSU, your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps the game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Jeff Landry said a few things there that I agree with, and some I need to correct. First, he says Scott Woodward talked about his failed contracts that he cost Texas A&M $70 million. That is not true. Scott Woodward signed Jimbo Fisher to a 10-year, $75 million contract, $7.5 million per year. It's actually very astute. He hired away a national championship winning coach and paid for it on the front end, because $7.5 million on the front end was a lot. But if you looked at the way contracts were going by the end of that 10 years, $7.5 million would have been middle of the pack in the SEC. The problem is that Ross Bjork, who replaced Scott Woodward when Woodward came to LSU, gave Jimbo Fisher an extension. And the contract extension after the COVID year is what landed A&M in that high buyout number, not the original contract. But this is one of those things that's become a very common echo chamber, nonsensical argument about Scott Woodward. It was not Woodward's initial deal. It was Ross Bjork's extension during the COVID year that landed A&M with the massive buyout. So Jeff Landry's wrong there. I think it was notable that Landry said he doesn't know who's picking the coach, that he's not picking the coach. That is important to note because I think there is a question when the governor inserts himself into these high-level conversations into LSU athletics. If you're going to fire the athletic director, which make no mistake, if Scott Woodward is not hiring the coach, he's not the athletic director. LSU next week is going to name a new university president. The selection committee, the presidential selection committee, met on Wednesday when they were meeting when Landry was giving that press conference. Literally, they met for a full day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., interviewed the finalists. And that selection committee is going to name its recommendation. It's very likely going to be Wade Roos, the current president at McNeese, who's very likely going to get the job. And that's Landry's hand-picked choice. And it's very likely who's going to get it. Fine. But when Wade Roos is inserted into office as the president, one of his first tasks is he's going to fire Scott Woodward. It's very clear that's what Jeff Landry wants, and that's what he's likely going to do. So who's going to hire this coach? I still don't have the answer, but what's clear, it's not going to be Scott Woodward, and Jeff Landry said it there that it's not going to be him. So is it going to be Burge Osbury, Austin Thomas, the new president? Will the new president get an athletic director in place in time to hire a coach? And if not, what type of pool of athletic directors are you going to be able to choose from when you're not even going to give them the autonomy to hire a football coach? Who's going to want that job? No big name athletic director. Okay, if that's what you want, that's what it is. But you're not going to be able to go hire a big name AD if you're not going to give them the autonomy to hire a football coach. But it's not going to be Jeff Landry. Now, a couple of other things he said. He said the taxpayers are not going to be left footing the bill. Let's nip this in the bud, okay? Because this is another gigantic misconception that, quite honestly, I'm sick of hearing. And I don't care if it comes from an anonymous person on Twitter who tells me this or the governor of the state. If you are trying to represent this $53 million buyout as something that's going to be left at the feet of the taxpayers, that is incorrect. And if you know it's incorrect and you say it, that's disingenuous. There is not one taxpayer dollar, not one taxpayer dollar that is going to fund Scott Woodward's buyout. That's going to fund Brian Kelly's buyout. Not one, not a single dollar. That buyout will be paid through private donations. That's it. They will privately fund that buyout. Now, if you have a big problem with that, then you need to go take to task the ultra-rich people who are going to spend $54 million to buy out Brian Kelly. But it is incorrect and disingenuous to say the infrastructure in the state will suffer. We won't be able to pay police, or we won't be able to place schools and teachers and build schools, and we're last in education, and we're last in all these things, and we're spending $50 million to buy out a coach. That's wrong. Really rich people are spending their money to buy out Brian Kelly, not the taxpayers of Louisiana. He also said, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same agent for Kelly and Scott. He said the A&M coach, which is Mike Elko. That's also incorrect. Brian Kelly's agent is Trace Armstrong. Jimbo Fisher's agent is Jimmy Sexton. Not the same person in any way. So you're dealing with different people. Now, Jimmy Sexton has a lot of big name clients. Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin's agent is Jimmy Sexton, but Brian Kelly's agent is Trace Armstrong. So that's another inaccuracy there by the governor. Now, I also think there's some things that I agree with very much with what he said. I love that he said the new contract, they will look at the metrics and the compensation will be based on metrics. He said, because I'm tired of rewarding failure. Okay. I love the idea of modeling contracts. It's very astute. I agree with him wholeheartedly here. This is a great point that I agree with. I agree with building a contract that awards or rewards success. You take less on the front end that is incentive laden or backloaded for a coach who bets on themselves. Yes, that is because who wouldn't pay? Do you think Alabama, when they were paying Nick Saban $11, $12 million, would have had any problem paying him $20 million? Of course not, because he was winning at the highest level. If you're winning, you'll reward success. No problem whatsoever. The problem is when you guarantee a bunch on the front end and it doesn't work out, then you're left holding the bag. But if that's your approach, then you have to realize you are lowering the bar. You are shallowing out the pool of candidates that you can serve. Because listen, if you in your brain have it in your mind that LSU is going to go hire Lane Kiffin or Dan Lanning or one of these big name coaches, if you have it in your mind you're going to get them on a backloaded, incentive-laden deal, you are smoking rope. Not happening. The only way you are going to lure that candidate away from their current job is by dropping a bag on them the same way you did Brian Kelly. So if you want Lane Kiffin, if you want Dan Lanning, which I do, by the way, I think Dan Lanning is the perfect choice. You're going to be prepared to spend $100 million. That's what it's going to cost. That's what it's going to cost. And if you can't stomach that and you want to do a metrics-based, incentive-laden deal, okay, but understand that the pool of candidates that you're going to be fishing in is much more shallow than what you may think. Also, he talked about agents. One thing he nailed that he may not have even intended to, but he's right, is a lot of the agents represent players. Keep in mind this, okay? And I would love to see guardrails on agents, especially with respect to players, because what a lot of people may not realize is, yes, agents that represent some of these coaches do represent some of the players as well. In the NFL, for example, the NFL has a collective bargaining agreement whereby agents' fees are capped at 3%. The most an NFL agent can earn is 3%. There are no such guidelines with NIL. So an agent can have a 20% fee if they want. So hypothetically, an agent can go work really hard, get an NFL player on a rookie contract, hope they get to the second contract and get 3%, or they could do a 7-figure NIL deal for a college athlete and get 20% of it. Yes, there are absolutely deals like that are being done right now. So he's right in that respect. And I think there needs to be certifications for agents and different guardrails that are put up to regulate some of those things so there isn't an imbalance to create that allows the markets to normalize. So there's a lot of things that Jeff Landry is saying that are right. They're very smart, high business acumen things that he's talking about. But what he's doing also that I don't think he understands is by being so out front as the governor of the state, finding his way, forcing his way so forcefully into this conversation about the coach, I don't think he realizes what he's doing in damaging this search. And I want to get to that as we continue here and also talk about what this means not only for the coaching search, but very likely for the AD search as well, because it's pretty clear. LSU's not only hiring a new football coach, they're hiring a new AD soon. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. With more IIHS Top Safety Plus pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025, from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. With all-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with the same confidence through almost any season. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail because When you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. I took the 2-minute video of Jeff Landry. I posted it on my Twitter account on Wednesday. As of the moment I'm recording this, which is 10:34 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday the 29th, that video has been viewed on Twitter 1.4 million times. And if you scroll the comments, and I don't mean to suggest that Twitter is the most accurate representation of all things in the world, but it certainly is a large sample size. And so much of the response to this video are people asking whether or not this is AI. Like, is this actually something that is real? You have people in California joking on the comments of this video that they can't wait for Gavin Newsom to get involved in the hiring of the UCLA coach. It's hard to believe. And we, living in Louisiana, have become used to how odd the political system can be in this state. But people from the outside looking in look at this as really bizarre. Why is the governor of the state of Louisiana so forcefully interjecting himself into how the athletic director is going to hire a football coach? That's just a massively uncommon thing. And I want to be clear about something else. I think Jeff Landry is wrong. I think Scott Woodward is an excellent athletic director. He is well respected with an amazing track record. From his time at the University of Washington, where he hired a young Steve Sarkisian, turned out to be a pretty good coach. And when Sark left for USC, he hired Chris Peterson away from Boise State. That worked out. He also oversaw the renovation of Husky Stadium and doubled athletic donations. That was at Washington. He did such a great job, he got the job at A&M. And at A&M, he lured a national championship winning coach in Jimbo Fisher away from Florida State. He hired Buzz Williams away from Virginia Tech to coach basketball. He oversaw new facilities for softball and track and field and the renovation of Kyle Field, the Texas A&M football stadium. He gets the opportunity to come home to LSU, where he hired Kim Mulkey. He hired Jay Johnson. It was a major coup when he got Brian Kelly, the winningest active coach in college football, away from Notre Dame to come to LSU. He was so forward thinking that I had a conversation 3 years ago, about how LSU was already preparing for what they termed at the time the inevitability of revenue share. So they were already starting to formulate how the athletic department budget would react when revenue share went into place. Scott Woodward is an outstanding athletic director. And I understand that your football coaching hires are the thing by which many athletic directors are going to be judged, right, wrong, or indifferent. But so much of that job is the ability to communicate with the people and engage your supporters, your donor base, to be able to build facilities and hire coaches and get things done. You could say, well, anybody would hire Kim Mulkey. That's true. But could anybody make the right phone calls to generate enough support to get $3 million a year for the women's basketball coach, a program that loses $8-9 million a year? You have to be good at your job. And Scott Woodward is outstanding at his job. He has support. And he is a Louisiana guy who went to LSU and loves this university and loves the state and wants to be here. And he's done an outstanding job at LSU. And I think firing him would be the wrong decision, just to be abundantly clear. I disagree with Jeff Landry, but I understand from the governor's standpoint, there are deeper rooted issues there. Scott and Jeff Landry are opposite sides of the political aisle, and the governor, with the support of a donor of his, Lee Mallett, wanted to get Will Wade rehired at LSU. They wanted to fire Matt McMahon and rehire Will Wade, and Scott Woodward wouldn't do it. And that started a giant rift between the two, and it's led to this point. But I'm going to tell you straight up, and I'm just a little radio podcast guy in this state, all day Wednesday, have gotten texts and calls from agents, from national media members, from administrators who view this as very unsightly. Because the question now becomes, does a coach, a prominent coach, really want to take a job at LSU when the AD clearly is about to be fired? and they don't know who they're going to be working for? And even if the AD's in place by the time they would take the job, is this a situation where really they're working for the governor, who can be a little bit of a lightning rod with stuff like this? Do you understand the point? It's unsightly. And then on top of that, what AD would want to come take this job where the governor at any point could pull strings like this, and you don't have the autonomy to do the job you're hired to do? It's very much going to shallow out the pool of candidates, not only for athletic director, but also for LSU's vacant head coaching position. Look, tact is an important thing. And people have political stroke and they use it. And if the governor wants to use his political stroke to make changes at LSU, that's fine. But tact is important, because in this situation, what's happened now is collectively the college football world is looking at Louisiana like, and LSU like, what's going on there? Who would want to be involved in that? That makes it very cumbersome when you're trying to hire a head football coach and seemingly soon an athletic director. Governor made some really good points, but the manner in which he did this was flat wrong. And my hope is moving forward that for the good of LSU and this search, and what likely now is going to be an athletic director search, that he stands down and let the people that are hired to do their job. We'll follow this as it moves along. I told you, LSU can't hire a football coach until you know who's going to make that hire. It's pretty clear. It won't be Scott Woodward. Please smash the like button if you would. If you're there on YouTube, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.